Which Side Podcast is a proud member of the Which Side Media Collective.
This week's episode is brought to you by the Which Side Media Collective store. All month long, all totes on our website are on sale for $7.50.
You know, the most popular ones right now are the vegan thank you bags and then the vegan Vespa logos. Make sure to check those out. But pretty much all of our designs are on totes now. So go get them while they last, because I can't guarantee you that they will all be up there forever.
Just go to whichsidemediacollective.org and use promo code Cleveland.
This is episode 201.
Yeah, we actually have Nichole and Callie from Vegan Warrior Princesses Attack. And they were in studio with us.
In studio, I know. That's phenomenal. They actually came out. They came out to the SLC VegFest. We tabled together. It was a phenomenal experience. I thoroughly enjoyed meeting them in person. And we're going to do a collaborative episode. So make sure that you go check out their episodes as well. They're absolutely phenomenal what they do. We're slightly different. You know, we do mostly interviews. They do mostly community building. So get your butts over there and listen to them, because they're the sweetest, awesomest people that we know.
Yeah.
Hey, Jordan, what news and events do you have going on this week?
Well, this week, if you're in Salt Lake City, you should come on over to the West Valley City Library and come to our prisoner letter writing night with Anarchist Black Cross. If you're in Colorado, you can join Anarchist Black Cross over there for a presentation on resisting FBI repression.
Wow. For the Slingshot this week, September 17th, 2011. Do you remember what happened? It's 2011, come on.
September
17th.
2011?
2011.
That was an okay day for me.
It's the day Occupy started.
That's what I was actually going to guess, but I didn't want to be wrong.
So you were wrong by not guessing.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be a monumentous failure and last maybe a day or two.
Yeah, I remember talking to you about it.
Yeah, we had conversations about it. Yeah.
Like, what do you think about this whole thing that's going to happen?
And I'm like,
it's going to fail. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. I'm optimistic.
Power to people. If you like these little tidbits of history, I pulled them out of the Slingshot Personal Organizer. Go get one yourself. You can keep up on these wonderful facts and get shown when you're wrong on things.
I mean, you were right in the end.
I did not expect it to do what it did, though. That is for sure.
No, I think it created a lot more movements, and it's awesome.
I mean, yeah, it made a lot of people more aware. So I'm not putting it down by any stretch of the imagination. Go get a Slingshot Personal Organizer at a local info shop or an online info shop like AK Press. I sincerely hope you enjoy this episode.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side? Which side are you on? 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 Which side are you on?
Let me say, it's kind of weird to have somebody in here recording
In the
with us.
studio?
It feels kind of vulnerable, right?
Oh,
like,
you guys.
like it's like inside, like what we're doing, you know,
Yes.
kind of a thing.
The closet open.
Like how,
with the closet open.
how we would feel if you're around Kelly's coffee table with us in our phone.
Yeah. And it's like that.
It's an IKEA coffee table. Make sure you get it right.
This is true. She also has a very nice rug.
Nice. IKEA is the best.
Well, I will just say it's a little intimidating to be in here because this is so profesh
God.
compared to what we do.
Like way
So
professional.
we're all having feelings. This is really magical.
All the feels.
No, and like it's been phenomenal having you all here. Hopefully, created like a deeper friendship, because
I think so.
Adult friending is hard.
It's so
Right?
hard.
So hard.
Yeah.
It's super hard.
We had so much fun here. Like, I'm excited to be home in my own bed again, but I'm sad to leave. This was really fun. And you
Yeah.
guys are like the nicest people I've ever met.
You guys are seriously
Like,
so
way
nice.
nice. Like, I'm kind of getting now why people are like, people in California are not that nice. Like, they're way nicer here in Salt Lake than we are.
And I'm from New England, so that's like a whole other level of not nice.
Well, when my daughter found out you guys went and had pedicures, she actually told me, she goes, "You should have told them I do pedicures." Which she does look like they're beautiful.
They are
they
beautiful.
are.
They're getting a
But
little
look,
old.
the
but
purple. You guys both have purple.
Yeah.
Matchy, twinsies.
Purple is my favorite color. So
You should have told them I do pedicures. like we're gonna come into town and put this 10-year-old to work.
You're like,
we don't know
I
you,
want a
but-
detail nail. Okay.
she's phenomenal because she gets pedicures quite frequently, right?
Of course.
And it's a fantastic thing. Like, I'll come home and she's like, "Let's play pedicure." I'm like, okay, like I'm not gonna say no.
Who would turn that down?
She puts your feet in like a tub with an Epsom salt, and she'll massage it, and then she'll dry them. Then she'll take the towel and whip your feet, and
Oh my god.
yeah,
I want that.
I need to
Maybe
come
I do
over
want to
more
have
often.
a kid.
it's it's fantastic. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, sounds pretty fantastic.
And the first couple times I felt bad, but I've never asked because then I would feel bad.
Yeah,
yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
Well, take it while you can.
So while you were here, did you get to experience what you wanted to, or the things that you didn't be able to experience?
Go ahead.
I think I got to experience everything I realistically wanted to for this trip. There's definitely more stuff I want to do and see, but I knew that it just was not going to happen this time. So I'm very happy with the whole trip.
I feel like I got exactly what I wanted. Like, we got some vegan food, we got to meet you guys and hang out and have fun, do a game night, and then we also got to see tons of crazy Mormon shit. So I'm just like, oh,
I know.
I learned so much more.
See,
What was your favorite crazy Mormon shit that you saw?
I mean, Space Jesus is phenomenal.
Space Jesus was awesome.
But he's really good when he's turned on. And by turned on, for people that don't know what I mean by that, is that he speaks to you. It's a statue that speaks to you, but we got there late and they had already flipped him off.
Yes.
I'm kind of glad he wasn't speaking.
It's
I feel
creepy.
like that would have creeped
It's
me
pretty
out.
creepy.
Yeah. And I was already trying to contain my mirth around all the very sincere people who were there. If he was speaking, I don't think I could have handled it.
I mean, the craziest thing was definitely after we were walking away from some gentleman in a suit, and you're like, that was the Mormon Mafia. Like, I'm sorry, you're going to need to explain yourself. Because I didn't know there was a thing, and we've been mocking this whole experience pretty hard. So
out loud.
Yeah. Like, you should have warned me.
Did you? I don't know if you noticed as we walked out of that building that had Space Jesus in it, and I can't remember who made the comment, but someone made the comment. It's like, "Oh, did you feel the spirit?" Right? There was a couple walking out as well, and the lady turned around and she had this look of like sincerity. It was just like, "That is so cute. They felt the spirit," not knowing that we're completely mocking everything about them.
That at the same moment we were laughing at #Hallelujah. The banner that was like on the building.
I'm just proud of them for using like social media and hashtags.
They're on it.
They really are on it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the Joseph Smith Sphinx though really was
Oh yeah.
the Gilgal, is
Yeah,
that how you
yeah,
say
Gilgal.
it? Gardens. That was just
That
such
was the creepiest
a
face.
bizarre experience.
He has a face that'll haunt your dreams.
I believe it.
For our listeners, I'll upload our photo to the show notes so you can experience the magic, but it was very bizarre.
Yeah.
But
Why
wonderful.
was he looking up like that?
Girl.
You look like he was having a seizure or something.
Oh.
It was super creepy.
See, but now since you've experienced some of that culture, when you actually like listen to or see like the Book of Mormon musical, the play, you'll get the references so much more.
I want to see that so badly.
Yeah, so
I think they just came to LA, was it? Somewhat recently, but the tickets were astronomical, so I didn't go. And now I just regret it.
Yeah.
If you can just listen to the soundtrack, it's totally worth it. The soundtrack is amazing. I know most of the songs by heart, so I know Jordan does as well.
Oh, we'll have to have a sing
like,
along
give
next
us a
time.
little preview. No,
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
Hello. You're supposed to
Jordan,
coming in?
Face
Jordan
is
is like not
no.
having it. No.
No?
I would have gone a different.
Which
song.
one you're going to go with? Asadiga Igwe?
Asadiga Igwe is pretty good.
Oh my
That's
God.
pretty good.
Creative differences are going to tear us apart, you guys.
You know, I'm all about spooky Mormon hell dream because coming out of the Mormon culture, like, totally true. Like, so there's a song in there called Spooky Mormon Hell Dream, which is pretty much akin to, like, how drinking coffee is, like, the worst thing you can do in Mormon culture.
Yeah.
What? Not booze? Coffee's the
No,
worst
because
thing.
coffee is that gateway to heroin.
To everything else.
Right.
Clearly.
Right.
Yeah. No, but I will say this: like being raised LDS did have some really good positives for switching over to an extremely radical culture because they teach pretty heavily like it's okay to be in the world but not of the world, meaning like you can live in the society but not really partake a part what the normal society takes a part in. So it's easier to be like, I disagree with all of society, but I still have to be here. So I grew up with that mindset of it's okay to be different and embrace that difference.
That's a really good point.
And they have an underlying anti-government stance.
Oh, I mean, they did declare war on the U.S. government multiple times. So,
Wow. That's pretty cool.
That is
I
pretty
didn't
cool.
know that.
I mean, you got to look for the
just,
silver
like,
lining
get rid
out
of
of all of
the-
the
yeah,
horrible
the rest of
stuff
that
of it,
bullshit.
right?
Of
Like, I'm not
course.
saying like I wouldn't recommend it for anyone, right?
Right. Yeah. No, I would not ever recommend Mormonism or
No.
any religion, really.
Shit. Taking a hard line. Yeah.
So, okay, I think that's a good segue. Like,
I've been hanging out with anarchists the last couple of days. I'm just like, fuck this.
No,
Should have seen what I did at the stoplight today.
Yeah, it was some.
He like
it was
Full
wrote
anarchy.
some construction columns or something. It was like,
He's like,
I don't
well,
know,
I'm
this
just gonna go.
Just-
Full anarchy.
It was.
It was.
It was.
was it respecting personal boundaries?
Yeah.
Okay, then let's go.
We're good.
No, so like we originally wanted to kind of talk about like how to build the culture around veganism and how to make sure that people are taken care of and how to embrace people either making mistakes or falling away and coming back. And I think like when you say, you know, all religion is bad, that's one thing we can like learn from religions. They do that extremely well. Like they have the ritual base and they take care of their own and they're very, you know, interconnected and keeping people to the quote unquote faith, right? So how do we as a community who try to embrace the differences so well, but then have like a hard tolerance of, you know, if you don't fit this, then just get away. How do we like bring some of those lessons in maybe?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's hard too because I don't want veganism to become like a religion in that we are choosy about who we let in, right?
Just choosy who we let go.
No, I mean, ideally we want everyone to be vegan, but yeah, I think we can in some way, as much as it pains me to admit, kind of see how caring for each other and really going out of our way. Like I don't want to speak for Nichole, but I feel like we learned a lot this weekend being with you guys and just seeing like if someone needs help, like help them. Like that seemed to be something that you guys kind of live by. And I thought that was really cool. And I think vegans could probably do that a lot more. It's just not so much worry about the difference of opinion and just try to support each other.
And I know there's a lot of religions that kind of have the idea of all are welcome here and whatever you've done in your past doesn't matter. You know, like your past sins are in the past. And I think we could apply that to veganism too. You know, I think we judge people a lot on like what level of vegan they are, how
I'm
vegan
5,
they are.
by the way.
You've made it to
You're a
5?
level
I mean,
five.
do you guys
pocket
not
mulch?
Do you guys not pocket mulch?
I'm very intimidated now.
Definitely not a level 5 vegan.
So you don't even have a shadow anymore?
Well, I mean, I don't eat anything that casts a
Don't
shadow.
eat
Of course
it.
not. Yeah.
That's vampires. Kind of the opposite.
Vampires, vegan.
Vampires, vegans, whatever.
Yeah, it's whatever.
Same diff. But I do, because I see, so I used to co-organize a meetup group in San Diego. And one of the biggest things that impacted how, you know, we try to shape the community now and the point of our podcast is girls would come in because we had a, you know, for ladies or people who identified as female, So girls would come in and they would be apologizing all over the place. They'd be like, I just went vegan 2 weeks ago. I still make mistakes. It was like a confession, right? Like they would come up to me and start confessing all the mistakes they had made and like saying, I don't even know if I should call myself vegan, and being very like penitent almost. And I was just so disheartened that they had had that experience with other vegans, that they felt that that was how they needed to approach their new veganism. So instead of finding joy in it, they were feeling judged and they were worried about being cast out. And so I think that we could adopt some of what the more open religions do, where it's very welcoming and it's like, no, you're part of our community now. Everything's fine. Whatever you've done in the past doesn't, not that it doesn't matter, but it's not going to be held against you. And any mistakes you make, there's a, you'll be forgiven kind of thing, because people do feel very judged and attacked coming in. And that first year is really hard no matter what. It's going to be way harder if you don't even feel like you can seek out community because you're afraid of not doing it the right way, or that, things are going to be counted against you.
It's interesting to me is, like you say, that first year is really hard. For me, it was year about 5 that was really hard.
Really?
And maybe that was because like I started feeling like the idea of, is what I'm doing making a difference, right? And that I really struggled with for a while, probably from 5 to 7. That was like a big struggle for me. Like, and what not a struggle enough as like, not continuing, but I know a lot of people do stop continuing during about that time frame because of that. Like, is this actually making a difference? Or is this just a personal thing that doing it? And if, why make these sacrifices if it's not going to cause anything, like no snowballing effect, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that's where we focus really heavily on the vegan community, is like that first like initiation, that first little bit, and like trying to build that groundwork, but there's no other building. We leave that to the individual at that point. And, a lot of times we need that support. We need that structure. One of the things that, like, going back to like the religious aspect that I feel we could benefit from is some sort of cult, like what do you call it?
Cult?
Not cult. I mean, it'd be, but
that would work. They have very good retention rates.
Like some sort of ritual that you use. Like religions use rituals a lot, and that's how they bring people together. And the rituals don't have to be like spiritual in nature, but just like
sacrificing something.
Yeah, sacrificing. Yeah. But like the idea of like having potlucks on a specific cadence, that's a ritual, right?
Absolutely.
Having but more broader base that we do as a community. Like if we had like a ritual that we could do, like, the first Saturday we all eat nooch covered popcorn or just whatever, right? Because it's the best thing in the world, right?
Yes.
But then you're going to have those people that are like, ooh, but it smells like socks. And you're like, yes, I know, but that's okay.
Who says that?
Have you
it
never
does
smelled
kind of
nutritionally?
smell like socks.
It smells like socks.
I mean, it doesn't smell good.
No.
But it tastes amazing.
It's one of those things that if you're not consuming and you walk into a room and smell, you're like, what the fuck? And then you eat it and you're like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Ryan from Tofu Magazine just said that he doesn't eat nooch either. I mean, throws away the
Ryan.
aquafaba and doesn't like nooch.
What?
I'm kind of like...
He's out of the club! No.
No, but...
Just kidding. We're trying to build a community.
But like, how can we bring in like a ritual like that? Like, I have no idea even what that ritual would look like, right?
Well, I know, because atheists kind of are struggling with the same thing.
Exactly, yeah.
Right? And I know
Besides
that...
being closed-minded on a whole bunch of other aspects.
Dude, I can't even get into that right now. But yeah, I know that in some cities they've established, what do they call it? It's something Sunday.
Oh, I don't know.
It's kind of like basically atheist church where you get together, you meet every Sunday.
Yeah, secular Sundays.
Secular Sunday, yeah, thank you. So yeah, I think, I know when we did have the meetup group, we had a monthly potluck, and even just doing it monthly, it really did build a sense of community, and there was some kind of regularity. Like, you knew throughout the month, if you were feeling really lonely, you're going to have this event where you wouldn't be different. You'd be with other people who understood you. So I think, and we do vegan drinks now, so we try to, that's only quarterly, but still, I think it just takes the initiative of some people to say, hey, we're going to do this thing.
Yeah.
And make it, but the hardest part is moderating it. The hardest part is keeping the atmosphere to be what you want it to be.
How do you keep it inclusive and not so, because
clicky?
Yeah, clicky. Because
Yeah.
people coming from an outside perspective, if you're doing something on regular cadence like that, they're going to feel like they're stepping on people's wills or intruding, even though the people they're putting on might never feel that way, right? But how do you make sure that it is all inclusive? But then also, how can we have like how can we bully people from the pulpit at the same time, right? Isn't that what religions do? Well, it's too. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think you really have to be careful with who is going to be running an event like that. I think that's how you make sure it doesn't become cliquey. I think there are some people that just are really good at making sure something is open and welcoming. And there are just some people who don't really have an interest in doing that. And it may even change. Like, I know when we had the meetup, we were good for probably a while. It was very open and welcoming. And then it got to the point where a few of us started to become really close friends, and we would go to these events and it was like, I don't want to socialize tonight. Like, I just kind of want to like hang out and catch up with my friends. And we feel bad about that now, because we look back and we're like, oh, like we had newcomers showing up to these things, and we weren't being as like open and drawing them into the conversation. So like we needed other people to like step in and be like,
Yeah,
okay, like if you guys want to go like hang out, like that's cool, but this event needs to be like, you need to have someone who's willing to do that.
Yeah, I think if you can rotate leadership or have a big pool that you're pulling from, because I think there are some people out there who can do it, but I think it's very hard to not get burnt out in making the small talk, mingling, making sure everyone's comfortable. I know for me as an introvert, it was really difficult to do that, and that's where I hit my wall and I just kind of stopped doing it. And I do feel really bad about it now, because I know that towards the end, newcomers were not given the same welcome that they had been in the beginning.
It's a lot to ask of somebody to say, you need to organize this and give up your life all the time for this, even though we're not asking out of anyone else, right?
Yeah.
Like, at what point is it asking too much of an organizer to say, like, well, every single month for eternity now, you have to do this thing, whether or not you're feeling it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's good if you can find multiple people to help out. I think it's good to change things up. I think there's a lot of things that are good with a routine, but routines do lend themselves to people getting comfortable and getting into their cliques, getting into certain habits that may not be really great for a newcomer. So I think as much as you can change things up, or so I'm part of a nerd group in San Diego, Active Lifestyle. Anyway, it's the big nerd group if you look it up.
Do you guys have fights between being nerds or geeks all the time, and the definition between the two?
Because the group is actually super inclusive. And I think one of the reasons it works so well is they have a bunch of different organizers, and they all organize stuff for their passion. So there might be someone who does like nerdy foreign film night, where someone else organizes game nights, where someone else is like a foodie nerd and organizes like, let's try out these new restaurants. And it keeps it like you can find what works for you. And then people aren't getting burnt out because they're kind of just doing their own little thing whenever they feel like it. But there's stuff going on all the time.
I'm super jealous of that right now.
It's very cool.
Because I love the idea of embracing what you're into, right?
Yeah.
Like, and just, this is who I am, and, yeah, I love banjos. Fuck you, right?
Exactly.
Like, that kind of thing. Or,
and find your banjo nerds and nerd
exactly,
out,
Totally.
Yeah, I wear bow ties. We have a problem with that. Like, I love that
bow
aspect.
tie was super stylish, though.
Yeah.
So I don't think anyone should
No
be...
shade on your bow tie.
Yeah, no shade on that.
I make most of them. Just to throw it out there.
What? Of course you do. You guys are
Can
so
you make me
great
a
at
bow tie?
DIY.
I mean, I could.
I want a bow
teach you neck
tie.
size.
Okay.
That sounds
I'll
creepy.
send
I
it
know. Like,
Never mind.
It's a little personal.
personal.
Wouldn't that be funny?
Just
If he's like,
measure your neck with
you have a big neck. It's one of those things you would never know about yourself
Yeah.
until you get measured for
It's
a bow tie.
not something you like need to know about
And you're
yourself
like, oh.
either, I feel like.
No.
I mean, I know mine, but that's just, because I make my own bow ties.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Yeah, but I think because that was part of what got me so burned out with the potlucks too, is that it was always a potluck and it was always the same thing. And for me, I got really tired of being so food obsessed all the time.
Yes.
And that kind of, relates to some like eating disorder issues I have, and I'm in recovery. And like, so for me, it was really important to not be so hyped up around food all the time. And so it just started to grate on me a lot. But if, I had thrown around maybe doing game nights, because that's way more my speed. So I think if we had been able to do that and diversify more and be able to really focus in on what we loved doing, I think it probably would have lasted a lot longer.
So I'm really glad. Oh, sorry, I'm stepping on you.
I was just going to say that it just reminded me of when I set up a protest for Sundance to protest fur down there. A whole bunch of people were showing up that weren't part of the clique of the activist community. But the clique in the activist community kept making jokes about non-vegans and people who weren't activists. And none of the people who showed up that weren't in that clique ever came again.
Yeah.
And it sucked. And then it made me realize, well, fuck, I need to do things differently. And so
that's good.
Yeah.
That's a really good point too. I feel like vegans, we struggle a lot when we get around other vegans. We like instantly go for the jokes about non-vegans, and we talk a lot of shit. And I think,
or we just obsessively talk about food, and then non-vegans are like, ugh. You know, it just is boring to someone who's not in that mindset. I've had trouble with friends who have non-vegan partners and will host something at their house, and the non-vegan partner's like, all you guys do is talk about food. I couldn't even get to know anybody at all. And I think we need to I think it's good to have a safe space, right, where you can just do that stuff. But I think another thing that could keep us more inclusive is having mixed events, so to speak, with non-vegans, and learning how to talk to people about things that aren't like the latest, you know, Miyoko cheese or something.
You know, and that's one of the things I really like about your show is that you don't focus on the food side of it at all. We try not to either. Like it gets very, like it's just not an aspect I want to focus on. And like when you're dealing with the potlucks all the time, it's all this food. But then on top of it, it's not just dealing with food. Then you're dealing with people shaming you for like, oh, you brought something with hydrogenated oil, or oh my god, that has GMOs in it. Like, and it's just such bullshit. You know,
or there's a lot of talk about weight. That's another thing that's very triggering, or it can be very exclusionary. It did.
A quote unquote vegan expert was saying, you know, that being vegan would make you lose weight, and like anyone who knows anything knows that's just absolutely not the truth.
Exactly.
But I mean, I was taught that when I first went vegan.
Me too. That's why I went vegan.
Me too. Yeah, that's totally why I went vegan. And then it became more than that, and I'm glad it did.
Yeah,
but
thankfully.
It's hard to see non-vegans being told those lies.
I had 2 women came up to me at the booth at the VegFest yesterday, and you know, they were talking about that. They were saying, oh, they just started going off about, first of all, they both were talking with a lot of shame and kind of embarrassment to me, and they started asking if we had bigger sizes, because we had some of our clothing hanging up as samples. And they were like, oh, what sizes do you go up to? And so I was telling them, and they both just started talking with all this shame about, well, I've been trying to do more raw food. I'm going to be trying to, and then some other person was like, did you read this book? They're saying now it's like 70, 15, 15. Oh. And I try, you know, and she's like, yeah, I'm trying to cut out oils and blah, blah, blah. And I just looked at them and I was like, you guys just eat what makes you feel good.
Yeah.
I said, it's okay to do this research, but at the end of the day, just whatever makes you feel good, just eat that way, and don't be so hard on yourselves. But it just broke my heart because it became very clear that they had gone vegan to lose all this weight. And then they both said that they were very ashamed that didn't happen. And one of the women even said her mother's like, if you're vegan, why are you so fat? Like, said that to her outright. So I just, you know, I was trying to be very gentle with them, and they both felt better by the end. I was, you know, saying there's a lot of variables here and you never know. I said, I put on weight when I first went vegan. We're sold, you know, this lie that it's a miracle cure for everything. It's not necessarily true. I said, it can be a great way to eat, but you also still have to do the work to figure out what works for you.
I hate the idea that vegan equals healthy. And you know, when people bring that up, I always like just to point out, well, Oreos are vegan, and I don't know anyone who would classify them as healthy, right?
Or even, you know, I learned I had to give up gluten. I was eating a ton of, you know, I wasn't necessarily eating poorly, but I was eating things that I didn't realize weren't good for my digestion at the time. Yeah. So there can be all kinds of, like, raw food for me is very difficult right now. But raw food is touted as the healthiest thing ever. And I wouldn't think anyone would argue that a salad is super good for you. But I learned that wasn't okay for my body at the time.
Raw food is really hard on people's digestion.
It
There
is.
is a reason
and
that we
nobody
developed
tells
cooking.
you that.
Yes,
It's
thank
very
you.
true.
Yeah.
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 And nobody tells you that. They just tell you it's the best thing ever. So
Just go without eating like a raw carrot for a while, and then eat 3 raw carrots and see how your stomach feels.
and
Like,
your jaw.
well, yeah,
I mean,
touche.
even really,
Yeah,
our
yeah,
like
they are,
faces
for
have
sure, yeah.
changed.
But like you feel it, like you know, if I eat a couple raw veggies, I might like it, but I feel it in my stomach.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I've never not been able to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big piece of this is we need to, I think as a community, we need to stop with the weight talk. You know, we need to let all that stuff go. Even if you are a health vegan, just, I don't know, keep it to yourself, I guess. That probably sounds rude, but I just think we need to stop with the obsession about health and weight and food, and just have more space for people to figure out what works for them, versus there's so much, like, that's why I have a hard time, you know, I try not to be hateful of any group, but I always joke about like raw foodists, but it's because they're so militant about it, and they don't, if you try to tell them, well, that doesn't work for me, it's just instantly, well, you're doing it wrong.
Yes, there's something with you all of a
Something
sudden.
with you is wrong,
'Cause
and
it
you're
can't be
probably
wrong with their
cheating,
mindset.
or yeah, and there's just instant judgment, and I don't think that that's something we need in the community.
Well, and the damaging part that I don't think a lot of people acknowledge when you are so food obsessed in your movement, you're always talking about food, you're talking about health, you're talking about weight, is that you're discouraging people from being an activist. Because a lot of people that maybe went vegan and didn't lose weight or aren't happy at the moment with how they look are probably not going out there preaching the benefits of veganism, right? I know I didn't when I first went vegan right away, because I was like, oh, I don't look like what most people would consider healthy, so why am I going to go talk to this like runner about going vegan?
Yeah.
Well, it's not about that. It's about the animals. So you're like telling people, if you don't look like what a vegan looks like and you're always talking about food, then you're probably not out there talking about it and being a good activist.
I think that's key, because, you know, I think you would talk to any, you know, animal rights activist and, you know, and say something like the aspect of, you know, how people fight the stereotype of like what a gay person looks like, right? And people would I'm sure that every animal rights activist would say, well, there is no gay person like stereotype. It can be anything. But
Not all.
Well, let's just say that they should, right?
Yes, they should.
My friends, at least. Yes. But we don't say that about veganism at the same time, or a lot of people don't acknowledge that aspect that, you know, veganism is all encompassing. There is no one stereotype. It should be everyone and everything, right? Regardless of any aspect, physical characteristic.
Yeah. I think there's a lot you can do too with language. So say maybe you start a meetup group or some kind of regular ritual event to get people in. You know, you can, so I know, for instance, on our meetup group, I updated the group description to say female identifying, you know, women or people who identify as female. Just small things like that can signal to people that they're welcome, that it's a safe space, that the person organizing or moderating is at least somewhat educated on these issues. I think that can go a long way too. And I think you could say straight out, you know, say you organize a potluck, but say there will be no body talk here. Like, say it right up front and then moderate it. I think I was talking to one of our listeners, emailed us the other day and was saying that she was really upset because she's in this Facebook group and it used to be really cool and it just had like 200 or 300 members. And now, you know, they're having these arguments about all lives matter and racism in the movement, and people are being really ignorant, and they've bloated to like 1,500 members. And she was like, should I speak up? What should I do? And I was like, you know, if you feel like you have the emotional bandwidth, yeah, say something. But I said, but really it should be on the moderators. I just feel like whoever is in charge needs to have that as their primary focus. And otherwise it's just not going to stick. If you have an organizer who's not concerned about these things, you're not going to have an inclusive group.
Mm-hmm. You know, what's interesting about that is that plays into the idea that we push onto men and women in society as well. Being like a man in that space, I would have no problem ever just being like, well, no, this is fucking ridiculous, right?
So interesting. We wanted to do a whole episode about that.
Yeah, not realizing that that's not how like the standard woman is going to be perceived, because they've been pushed this whole thing. And like I jotted this down, that like you kind of brought it up when you were saying, you know, you had these new vegans coming into your group, and they were using qualifiers like, you know, I just became vegan. And like
they were apologizing before even saying their name.
And you know, and that's not something that, you know, we perceive as far as like a male would do, right? They don't qualify. They're just be like, yeah, I've been vegan for a week now.
Yeah.
Right.
It's so true.
And
point of pride instead of one of shame.
Exactly. Right. Like, but how do you fix that? Like, that's a deeper societal thing, you know?
It is.
Yeah.
But I think you can do it within, I mean, it takes time. It's not something you can fix right out of the gate. But I feel like we empowered people a lot. When those girls would come up to me, I would be like, first of all, don't apologize. Congratulations.
Exactly. Yeah.
Welcome to the community. You know, you're safe here. So I think, again, it kind of is on the people who are in charge of whatever it is to provide that safe space right out of the gate, because you're going to get those comments, and then you can set the tone and start the idea of empowerment, and you're always going to have your like we had in the group, we had regulars and people who kind of became, maybe they weren't the organizers, but they were people who were comfortable, that we knew really well. So you just start to build this community. And I think especially with women, we notice how we talk to each other and how we talk about ourselves. So if you can start having a good group, a solid group who's there all the time, who is not apologizing, who's telling other people not to apologize, who aren't doing the body shaming or the self-shaming talk, it catches on. Because I've had a lot of women come back later and be like, you said something and it really stuck with me. And it might be weeks or months later, but we think about stuff. Men, I think, kind of think out loud in the moment. Typically, you know, when I talk to men, they'll be like, oh, something you said just there was really interesting. Let's dig into that. But women kind of take stuff back a lot of times and kind of chew on it. So I think for whoever you're catering to, I think just saying things and catching those moments of shame or the kind of confessional feeling, and right in that moment being like, don't do that. Don't apologize. Feel pride in what you're doing. They may not respond right away, but it sticks in there and it gets to them.
And I think that it plays into the aspect that as a man, we have to, one, be aware that we're going to be, if you're going to, you know, just blurt those things out, that you're stepping on somebody else. You could be taking that voice away from someone who does have that voice and wants to say it, right? But also that you have the problem with a lot of men that, you know, quote unquote, want to say that they understand it and be like, well, here, I'll let this woman speak. Right. You know, and both of them are just as bad.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I mean, and I'm sure you get it all the time.
Yeah.
But as a man, you know, it's one of those things that we have to recognize. And it's only within the last couple of years I've recognized it, started to recognize it. And, you know, and we see it all the time in the rights community. It's why it's a male driven community. Even though the vast majority of people that are vegan are female.
Yeah, I really don't understand that. I don't understand how, because vegetarianism, I think, is a little bit more split evenly, right? Male and female.
I don't ever look at their statistics. I'm sorry.
No. I
Their
don't blame you.
Thank you.
No, but I think veganism is mostly women, and yet it's so male driven.
Yes.
But I do think that there's a big, I mean, we honestly wanted to do a show about it and get men to come on to the show, because we, you know, our group was all women. But of course, people had husbands and partners and boyfriends. And we noticed that the male partners were like, they were going to work events and like just started a job and would be like, you're an environmentalist. Why the hell aren't you vegan? And we're all like, you know, because that's not something as a woman you're taught not to do that, right?
Yeah,
That's not
Don't
okay.
be too
Don't be too pushy. So we just started to notice, and we'd be hanging out, we'd be doing group stuff, go out to a restaurant, whatever it was just all these things would pop up that the men were just not apologetic, very outspoken about their beliefs, very willing to challenge each other. If they have friends who don't eat or are omnivores, they you know, would get teased. They'd be like, fuck you, like my cholesterol is great or whatever. They would instantly push back with no apologies. So we started to notice that there was such a huge difference in how we present ourselves in the world. And I think
Yes.
it's very hard to be a leader and activist if you're constantly trying to make everyone feel comfortable and apologizing for who you are.
And it's also a double-edged sword. I believe Sheryl Sandberg was one who did a lot of this research specifically around the tech industry, right? She's the COO of Facebook, where, you know, the leadership qualities that you're talking about, being able to come out and just challenge and push forward, that's viewed positively for men. Like if you look in all of the ways that we describe leadership qualities towards like kids, they're all positive when it comes to men, but with the same traits in a woman, that's also going to be pushy or too aggressive, and these are all negative traits, even though it's the exact same action.
Yep. It's so true.
Yeah, I literally just got in trouble at work.
She got in trouble for being aggressive.
Too aggressive, and actually someone called me a bully, and it was because one time in a meeting I disagreed with this person. That
I mean, that drives
and
me
that
fucking
makes me
insane.
like,
Yeah.
and the
How
crazy
dare you
thing
disagree.
is, crazy, ableism. Is my boss and this other person are both women too. So it's like we self-police, right? In this like patriarchal
Absolutely.
system where it's like, oh, she's starting to like not be afraid of speaking out. Like you need to tone it down. You need to be more gentle. And I was like, no, no. And I was like, part of this is just my personality, you know?
Yeah.
And also like I'm young
As
and
a
I'm
human,
female.
not as a woman.
Right. In
Like,
a
that's
workspace.
Your personality as a human person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
You
yeah.
know, what's really interesting is that I shouldn't say all that, I know of one study around this, and it was again majorly focused around the tech industry. They found that in areas, or mainly it was companies that they were looking at, where this topic was just talked about and no action was actually taken to fix it, it actually kind of fixed it. Just the idea of talking about it and making people aware that it existed, right?
Absolutely.
Making people aware of the idea that, you know, you're going to be unconsciously biased against a woman on these leadership traits, and once you acknowledge that unconscious bias exists, that almost makes you aware of it, and you can, you know, kind of can self-police it.
Sometimes this certain circumstances are a little bit more
Of course.
ingrained. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, as a whole, I think as a community, if we talk about it in like the animal rights community, hopefully that we can start seeing systematic change.
Yeah.
Just being aware of it. I don't think we need to come in and
I agree.
force regulations or anything. Like just the idea of talking about it, making people aware of that this is a problem can kind of help start.
I think
solving it.
I think speaking out, because I did it at work. We had our CEO kind of appropriated term of female empowerment, and I pointed it out in a meeting, and I was like, that's not cool. And ever since then, the person I pointed it out to, who's like the head of our department, he's like, I'm so afraid to talk around you, but he's constantly correcting himself or kind of watching what he's saying. And I know for some people, they would be like, see, you made him uncomfortable. But to me, it's like, but he's actually paying attention to what he's saying now. And he's paying attention to what other people are saying. And change is uncomfortable. I've been made very uncomfortable learning about a lot of my privilege or a lot of the things that I did wrong that I had no idea. So it's okay to make people uncomfortable. But I do think talking about it doesn't always fix it, but it makes people at least aware. I mean, I think people at Callie's work, even if they're not changing their behavior, they do call it out a lot. Like, oh, this is going to upset you. And I think even, you know, but even that
don't
level,
do it. Like, how's
Thank
that?
you.
yeah, even that level of awareness means that they are on some level uncomfortable because they know that they're saying something that will upset someone else. And I think it's a kernel of something. And I agree. I've found in the vegan movement community, you bring something up and you get attacked, you know, in these kind of mainstream communities or even in the animal rights communities. If you bring up, that was the woman who emailed us about her Facebook group. She sent us, you know, she copy and pasted a bunch of comments and they're shocking, but that's how people think. But I told her, you know, even bringing it up, even if you get this horrible reaction, it makes people think. Sometimes people react really poorly in the moment, but it sticks and it bothers them. And then eventually they kind of rationalize their way through it, or they look something up, or they go talk to someone else, and they can come around to things.
I have a question for you guys about that. So we do want veganism, right, to grow. We want everybody ideally to go vegan. But how do we want it to be inclusive, but also make sure that it's not like sexist and racist and, you know, call out things like people using all lives matter. Like, how do we do that? Because invariably, the bigger it gets, the more we're going to have these conflicts.
I felt that way lately, almost like I have to raise it to the, like burn it to the ground and start over. Because there's so many problematic people in the movement. I'm almost like, get out, we'll figure it out. So I see what you're saying. Like, we want everyone to be in it, but at the same time, to try to make it inclusive, it's like 90% of the people have to shape up or ship out.
Well, and new people coming in, right?
Yeah.
You're getting more like normal people.
Normies.
Right. Like, quotes. I hate using that phrase, but you know what I mean? Like if you're going to like just your average Joe, like your guy who's maybe like a big meat eater and now he's becoming vegan and he steps in and he's like, what the fuck? Like SJW land. Like, what do I do now? What do we do about that?
Call them out. I honestly,
Yeah.
I think that's one of the easiest options.
You know, I mean, I think certain behavior needs to always be addressed. But I think we also have to realize that everyone's on a journey at the same time, and everyone's at a different place. And that this is something that I kind of struggle with is the definition of what veganism is, right? Like, veganism does have a very easy definition, right? Someone who doesn't use or consume animal products, they can be a vegan. That doesn't mean anything else. So you can be a racist vegan. It's that fits the definition, right? So I don't think we should be accepting of racism by any chance, but I think we need to understand that anyone can be vegan just by fitting these guidelines. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But as far as like the animal, like, I think there's a big difference between being vegan and then being an animal rights activist as well. And that the issue that you just raised is probably why I don't focus so much on animal rights anymore. It's because I think these other issues, and maybe that's just because, you know, I have an anthropocentric look on things, you know, because I'm a human.
Speciesist.
No, but you know, I see these other things, and when you look at it and say, well, what are battles we could win? You know, I think it's easier to win changing people and getting them away from racist attitudes than it is to them to stop consuming all animals. And I think that you can do that in a way that kind of links them both together. You can show compassion for one over the other. So if you're looking at, you know, what are the horrid things in society and what's winnable, what do you want to focus on? You know, and inside the animal rights community, we do it as well, right? That's why they focus on factory farms, right? They don't focus necessarily on vivisection so much because vivisection is a harder battle to win. I will argue that point. That's a whole nother. They would argue the numbers aspect, right? So you can have like these ideas of where we should have this focus, and that's why, as a community, I think we should be focused more on intersectionality and still focus on the animal rights issue, but be focused more on intersectionality than foodieism or you know, look at these new fantastic cheeses we have, which are fantastic. I don't want them to go away, but I don't want to have, you know, hour-long discussions based around this.
Right.
Yeah. And I do think a strong community helps with that, because I know when we were in our height of the meetup group, we would go out to restaurants or wherever, and people would just be like, you guys are having so much fun. And we were all really kind to each other. And I think that's shown through a lot. And people like non-vegans were very drawn to it. They're like, I want to hang out with you guys. Like we would go all over San Diego and people would just be like giving us free stuff because they just wanted to be around us, because there's such a vibe of, you know, we're good friends and we're all being really nice to each other and we were being super nice to everyone else and we're just really happy. And I think if you can build a really strong, healthy community where you're not letting those shitty behaviors be okay, people will kind of check a lot of their stuff just to be part of it. You know, I noticed people kind of chewing, who probably in a different group would have been spitting out problematic things, would kind of like hold back, and then they would listen to what they were saying and they would kind of nod, and then they would kind of change their minds about stuff without ever having to get into a big altercation about it.
You know, what I like about that is that it's focused on community building, right?
Yeah.
And so often we as activists are solely focused on the tactics of activism, right? And not to call somebody out at the VegFest we were just at, but they were even talking about, we have so many more people here, now we can call them to demos. Well, that's not going to build the community. I'm not saying that you shouldn't call them to demos, but that's the first point where they're thinking, right? Their first point is, how do we get more people into the streets?
Exactly.
You know? Which is important. I'm not disqualifying it, but that's just interesting that is the focus instead of strengthening the community.
Yeah, and we see that a lot.
Well, and the idea that that's what activism is.
Yeah.
Like people always jump to like, even people who aren't activists, if you ask them like, what does an activist look like to you? They're like someone out there like protesting or walking with signs or doing a demonstration.
Or breaking into farms or, stuff that's not accessible to a lot of people.
Right. And I don't think any of those things are bad. I just don't think that that's the only way to be an activist. Mm-hmm. And I think part of the reason we wanted to talk about this topic today was because veganism, we're starting to convert more and more people, but we're not good at retention. Like, we're not good at retaining vegans, right? It's a hard path to walk when you don't have friends and family that are maybe local to you that are vegan, when you're fighting with other vegans about other social justice issues. I mean, you think that you're going to walk into this and be like, vegans, I found my people, and maybe it's okay that they're not local to me. And then you're like, God, like Facebook is a fucking shit show of like hatred towards each other, of vegans hating each other. I don't even talk to like non-vegans on Facebook. It's like other vegans most of the time.
Mm-hmm. It's so nice not being on Facebook. I'm just going to tell you that right now. It relieves so much of that pressure.
I mean, I pretty much...
But that's my marching in the street, so I gotta keep fighting.
I've removed myself from everything that isn't the VWPA society.
Yeah.
Honestly, because I I just don't have the energy for it. So we moderate our group. Our group is great. And I just can't bring myself to be immersed in all the other stuff.
Well, and your group is one of the only reasons I would sign up. I considered it just for that. But...
And you'd be very welcome there.
You would. My God, our listeners are probably
I would just turn into an mansplainer on everything.
Oh my God.
Well, actually, let me tell you how it really is.
Oh, actually, like nobody should just ever say that.
Yeah, everyone should remove that from their vocabulary right now.
No, but it is challenging right now. We're in this phase of like, okay, we're starting to like get a lot more traction in mainstream. Mm-hmm. Veganism is becoming a word that people know. And we need to figure out how to like keep these people, right? Yeah. And that in some ways is just as important as I think making new vegans or like campaigns against big organizations.
Yeah, no, I agree. If we had more vegans become vegan, stay vegan, and build this amazing community that I was talking about where people look at it and they're like, I want to be part of that. I think that's way more important than just straight up conversion numbers.
That's why I would like to see a greater focus on taking vegans that are lifestyle vegans and converting them into ethical vegans.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know what the actual numbers are between the two, but I would argue there's probably more lifestyle vegans than ethical vegans.
I would think so.
Right? But when you look at the retention rate, a lifestyle vegan at tops is 10 years usually. Mm-hmm. Because, they make excuses. Like, well, it's only ice cream today, or it's only this.
Well, it's now. Like a diet. Who doesn't cheat on a diet?
It's backyard eggs now, so it's okay.
I'll start eating those now. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to go down the whole slippery slope argument, but if you're going by strict definitions, that isn't being vegan,
right? Yeah.
But ethical vegans, they seem to have a track record a lot longer. Once you have that ingrained, like, this is who I am. This is part of my moral quote unquote compass, or whatever you want to call it, right? We seem to last a lot longer. Yeah. And I say we because I consider myself an ethical vegan.
Yeah. Yeah. Gosh, I can't imagine though, even being a lifestyle vegan and going that long and then being like, meh, like I'm going to go back. Like I could understand the first couple of years, but
I don't think it happens overnight. I think that's the thing. I think it starts off with, I'm having backyard eggs. And then it's like, well, I'm at a party and this cat has eggs in it. Well, I don't know. So I'm still going to eat it. And I think it just slowly builds upon itself.
Well, and the thing I think, especially with lifestyle vegans, is that there's always different research coming out, right? So you may think that plant-based is the most healthy right now, but there's always something else coming out saying that, well, actually, like we have
paleo's better.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Now you should be drinking bulletproof coffee, which
like we
sounds
have a friend
disgusting.
Who has always been vegetarian, went vegan for a bit, and then she got really into Ayurvedic eating, and so now she eats ghee.
What that is?
It's like Indian.
It's related to yoga, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
that's like they also have like their own like medical stuff, right? It's
Yeah.
like their,
So it's
I
like
know,
a
yeah.
whole it's a whole philosophy
Yeah.
on your type.
You eat with the seasons.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
also for
yeah.
your dosha type. That's the word I was looking for. So she started eating ghee, which is clarified butter, raw honey, because to her that was like it actually to her is spiritual in a way, right? And it's also
You're laughing.
You just called me
Yeah,
out.
I mean, because I watched the last
Trying
two.
to laugh silently.
Sorry,
No, it's
you
fine.
physically expressed what I was feeling inside. So thank you.
exactly.
I just...
I know
that.
but and also, I totally
I don't
agree.
even care.
But that's
She
what I'm
probably hates me
saying.
anyway,
That's
though.
why lifestyle vegans don't.
Burn another friendship to the ground. What's more? One
It's
more.
not like
right?
she listens to the show.
She might listen to us. I'm just kidding.
Well, you are men, so you have a lot more valid things to say, right?
Burn. Oh, I thought you were going
because you know we go after the lifestyle vegan type, right?
But anyway, to her in her phase of life right now, this is the healthiest way to eat. And it also, she's able to rationalize it by thinking that she's doing this very spiritual thing because she's very into yoga and all these other things. So I think that's where the lifestyle vegan, just how are you going to stay vegan? There's always a way, there's always something that's going to make you think like, yes, some animal products are better for me or are good for me. Or like you said, it's like a diet. So you're going to be like, oh, it's just some ice cream. I'm going to have that here. There's so much social pressure too. I mean, a lot of lifestyle vegans are just like quote unquote normal people out in the world. You know, they're not living some kind of counterculture lifestyle. So they're constantly exposed and pressured to have these things. And if you don't have that ethical stance, I just don't see how you could possibly not give in at some point.
Yeah. Because I think a lot of vegans probably wouldn't admit it, but they have days where they're like, oh, man.
It'd just be so much easier.
It would just be so much easier if I could just walk into this restaurant right now and like order something.
I think that way,
you know?
traveling
Drive through
all
fast
the
food and
time.
get a milkshake or something. You
Right,
know, It's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Like we were at the airport the other day and it was like, God, you know, like not
I just
that
want a
wanted
breakfast sandwich, you know?
Exactly. And you're like, oh, it was just so much easier before. Like you didn't have to like plan as much. And so if you didn't have that ethical, like, but that's fucking wrong and there's no way like I'm going to eat that.
You know, and this is why I've always had a hard time trying to push veganism as the healthy alternative or the healthiest diet. I never try to sell veganism as a healthy diet. It's an adequate diet. You can be healthy on it. That's fine. You can adequately meet all your nutritional needs. That's all that should matter, right?
Agreed.
Is it the most optimal diet for human consumption? Probably not. Like, let's be honest about it, you know?
Yeah.
So I just hate that argument to begin with. I think it's flawed footing from the get-go.
It is. And I mean, it did both of us a disservice when we went vegan. And thankfully, we came into the ethics. And I even started based on I was very concerned about the environment. So we had enough to get us through to where now, you know, we're ethical vegans. But yeah, if I hadn't looked out with all the things that I did, I wouldn't have stayed vegan if I was strictly health, because it didn't make me healthy. It didn't make me super thin like I thought it would, you know, it didn't make me glow.
Yeah. I got really sick eating a certain,
I almost killed myself with
vegan
juice
diet.
fasts. Don't even get me started about that.
yeah.
So yeah. And you know, and there's so much talk about veganism and eating disorders, and it's not an eating disorder, but holy shit, if you get into it the wrong way, it can give you one.
It can be.
Or it can exacerbate one that
Yes,
you have.
for sure. And I think it's key to try to help recognize seeing that in somebody.
Yeah,
and try
and
to
I see it
help.
all the
Yeah.
time with
Yeah,
growth, because you know,
likewise.
women talk to me, talk to us, and yeah, we see it all the time. We're like, oh, honey, you know, and you're like, this is not good.
cleanses too. Those like, you know, maple syrup, lemon, cayenne, master cleanse
master
thing.
cleanse.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ugh.
it's scary stuff.
Makes you pee a
well,
lot.
It does.
Well, and then there's like just the juice cleansing for veganism. Like how many vegans think that like you should be drinking green juice for breakfast, and then you know, and then you start like substituting your meals for juice. And then that can set off certain things.
You know, and it's tricky because I do like a good green juice.
Yeah, me too.
And I've gone a very long time with only having green juices for breakfast, right?
Yeah.
But it's not I'd hate to sell that to somebody like this is what
Right.
we need to do.
Well, and it's
Right.
all circumstance because you said you don't really eat breakfast.
No, I really don't.
So having a green juice for breakfast is like a huge upgrade.
Yeah, it really is.
You know?
Especially for me. I mean, we're almost noon today, and I've only had 4 cups of tea. That's like...
I would be a mess.
Are you looking at me right now?
No, we mean like
No, yeah,
like shaky and
I would have so much sweat coming out of my armpits, and I'd be like, oh,
That's why I'm wearing a hoodie. I'm just trying to hide it all.
so much sweat.
so much sweat.
No, and to be fair, 6 is like where I start getting that shaky.
Okay,
I kind of
that's
built
fair.
up the tolerance, but
6 cups of tea.
yeah. Well, I mean, this is like going.
And you're
maybe,
drinking dark teas.
Oh,
too,
I do.
Like,
So like this is probably TMI or whatnot, but like I woke up with a caffeine migraine this morning. So I'm just like, 'cause I didn't have enough caffeine yesterday, and which means like I gotta get that caffeine this morning all of a sudden. You know, and normally like on the weekends, it's very common for me to get that because at work I drink just a literal fuck ton of tea, right? That equates to like,
Scientific
literally.
measurement.
it's literal. It's literal a fuck ton. And if you're worried about how much that is 10 cups, by the way. That's what that equates to
Okay.
of dark black teas.
good to know for future
Yeah,
reference.
for future reference.
It's about a fuck ton.
It's about a fuck ton, yeah. So,
I'm gonna add that to like my conversion chart in my kitchen.
Fuck ton.
but
Yes.
but I'm used to it on the weekends, and I kind of just live through it usually, and I allow that to happen, and I just know that's my shitty lifestyle. But where I know I have to like actually not be a grumpy asshole with y'all here and actually record, I'm like, well, I better do this.
Your poor family.
I mean, touche. I mean, it's true.
Well, I just don't know if I could accept having a migraine that often.
I know.
Because I get
You're a
migraines and
trooper.
they're the worst. But if I was like, oh, it's just the weekend, that would make me very
It's just
sad.
Sad face.
It's not recommended.
You're such a
just-
sad strawberry.
Oh my God.
Yes, sad strawberry. I'm in the, but I feel like
People are like, what?
in
Inside
this, I'm in. It's a vicious cycle,
Yeah,
right?
it is.
And and that's where I started like juicing to help me try to break that cycle, and it worked. But then circumstances made it so now I
Old
don't have the
habits
ability
creep
to do
back
that
in.
right now, and other things. So
Yeah. And I love green juice. I use it, especially if I feel like I'm coming down with something. But the difference now is that I don't substitute meals for it. It's just something it's almost like a vitamin. Like I supplement my day with green juice. It makes me feel amazing. It's a slippery slope, of course. But yeah, I just get really concerned because I see, like I said, with those 2 women yesterday, it just broke my heart of just how much shame they had over not. One of the women was just saying, yeah, they just tell you the pounds are going to melt off. They're just going to melt right off you. And she's like, nothing's melted off me. And and she's just like, I'm embarrassed. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And it just made me really upset. And fortunately, they both continued to talk, and it came to light that they both are also ethical vegans. And the one woman was also very concerned about the environment. So I feel like they're going to stick with it.
yeah, yeah.
Which is great. But just to see,
But they shouldn't have that shame.
they shouldn't have the
associated with it.
shame. Yeah. And it's really sad to see. And we need to address that as a community. And I have to be really honest and say, I feel that a lot of vegans take pride in body shaming because they've achieved, the ideal figure in their head. And it's being a former anorexic. I understand the mindset that you're kind of putting yourself through something that's very physically uncomfortable, painful, and really hard to maintain. So you do develop the sense of being better than other people
Oh yeah.
in order to keep up with the fact that you're miserable, right? So I see in the community, I just feel like there's just a lot of eating disorders, disordered ways of thinking, and it's something that we have to address.
Just have a little bit of hope in people, because as somebody who, when I was 18, 19, 20, 21, I was that person. Like, and I was sold this idea of, and I swallowed it, and I preached it as well, that if you're vegan, you're going to be healthy, you're going to be that ideal weight, you're going to be, you'll have glowing skin, you'll all of these things, and I touted it like it was the gospel, and and shoved it down people's throat. So if I can change, and I was really fucking bad, I'm not going to deny it, right?
Yeah.
That's just something I have to own now. And I was really bad. So, hopefully, and I'm not saying I'm perfect at this point. Like we all still have like lots to go, but people can change, and that's the good side of it, right? Is that we can affect change in people.
Yeah. Well, I think we all have skeletons in our closet. I'm sure there are all problematic beliefs or things that we used to say and do. I know there was a shit ton that I would be totally embarrassed if
let's air all of those now.
Confessional.
Get it all out. But a lot of us didn't always grow up in the beliefs that we hold now, right? Some of us were deeply religious. Some of us grew up in conservative households. There was a lot of stuff that I think people grew up believing that now maybe they're like, holy shit, that was wrong, or even 2 years ago, just going vegan, and now learning from a lot of really amazing intersectional vegans and being like, shit, I have got to reevaluate some things. So we all have that, which is why I really like, Nichole, what you said earlier about having that forgiveness piece about where someone came from or what the background is, or even if they had an oopsie the other day, and just be like, that's okay. You're still doing the best you can,
Yeah, I think the key is to try to have your purpose be to try to form deep connections with other people rather than to feel better than other people.
Yeah, I think that the idea, because even when you start talking that way, and when I was at the height of probably the most absurdity, with it was, that superiority feeling that you always maintain. Well, I'm doing it right, so I have to be superior. But I want to be clear, being vegan is superior.
I mean,
especially if you're not gluten-free, right?
Exactly.
I mean, I
love your little laugh.
And what's hard is it's really hard to convey sarcasm through a microphone.
Yes.
No, I think that's the problem. All vegans agree that it is superior, but it's how do we not also walk around as assholes all the time and be okay, all you vegetarian and meat eaters out there, fuck you.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I'm saying. If you make your focus connecting with other people, it can help override that,
Hopefully.
So we're coming up on an hour right now. I want to ask you all, talking about being superior and making people come to the side, how can we make you more superior and come to the anarchist side as well?
I mean, I'm pretty much there. I'm pretty sure I am an anarchist. I just feel not educated enough.
You don't need to be
to
educated.
Wear the label. But I'm
that's overrated.
Every single thing you guys have said, I'm yeah, that's what I believe.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm on my way there. I have not learned much about it. So
Callie just went atheist this year? Or was it last year?
Last year?
We're just pulling her along.
Yeah, she got me to go atheist by listening to an atheist podcast. And
no gods, no masters.
Yeah, see?
Mm-hmm.
That's an anarchist thing.
I like it. I just don't know much about it, and I feel like I would end up talking to someone, and they'd ask me some of the questions that you guys have, and I'd be like, I don't fucking know.
So, what kind of
because you're there's different kinds of anarchy, and I'm like, oh, I don't know.
But I mean, that's all cultural crap that kind of dilutes the waters, right?
Mm-hmm. Honestly, and I'm not a good example. Right now, I'm wearing a shirt that says Kropotkin on it. But,
which is funny because I'm not even a huge Kropotkin fan.
I'm not even really a huge
Kropotkin. We made the shirt. It was just funny.
We thought it was funny. But and there's a whole bunch of different anarchists that people always cite, and I'm not well read when it comes to old anarchist literature. But
I'm not well read on new anarchist literature.
Let's be honest. Yeah. I just don't read anarchist literature.
The biggest question I think I have about anarchy is just this idea of how do you still force someone to do the right thing?
Callie's always very concerned about how we force people to do things.
How do you force someone to do the right thing?
Yes.
Well, first,
you
don't. First, you just don't. You don't force.
Okay, see,
she's
that's what I struggle with.
So
because
really,
I'm okay, veganism is the right thing. At some point in my mind, I imagine that we would get to the point where we're animals aren't ours. We no longer have the ability to choose to torture them. How would anarchy handle that?
So really, we really believe
that when people have everything stripped away from them as far as the power dynamics are imposed upon them that make them make certain decisions or force them down certain paths. If people are equal to make the actual decisions themselves, that more often than not, they will make the reasonable right decision. And
what if they don't?
Being vegan is the reasonable right decision.
I mean, but you can say the same thing in today's society, like where, you know, if people are given a choice, are they going to make the right decision? Then how do you force them to do that? And you just can't.
And you shouldn't. That's the key.
There's a lot of social pressures and legal consequences, and not that I agree with the legal consequences.
I think social pressures would still be there.
Social pressures will always be there.
But see, we also have recently been talking a lot about shame and about how shame is actually a tool that society uses to like keep people in line, and how shame is actually really fucked up.
But you're talking about gels, and what more shame does society have than going to jail, right? So gels are just an instrument of violence that the state utilizes to get the state to bend people to their will.
Well, right? I definitely don't agree with jail.
And it is used, and it's used towards demographics that they want to see changed, right? It's not used equally across the board. So the state involved in something is already flawed and wrong, and you're already saying you disagree with that. Mm-hmm. That's all we're saying is the same thing. We disagree with how the state is operated and set up on this front. Does that mean that everything will be perfect? No. Society will never be perfect, and we need to stop the idea that it will be perfect. It won't be perfect. Will there be challenges? Yes. What is the best way to move forward with our fellow beings, right? Human and non-human, however you want to look at it. And I do believe eliminating the hierarchical structure that forces people to make choices that we would deem wrong in society, if we eliminate those forces, that people will make those right choices or the better choices for themselves and their communities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think I just need to look into it more.
Yeah,
it's hard because it's like I just don't have it like figured out yet. Like I just don't quite understand.
Have you ever? I shouldn't even say this. I'm sure you have. You've been in a group of 10 people that had to make decisions before. No one's enforcing the decision that's made, right? Some people will make concessions to make a decision before. It could be as simple as like where to go to eat, right? Everyone's not going to get their way every single time, and people have to make concessions. But you can do that without the threat of violence. Mm-hmm. And that's really the standpoint that we have. That
exactly.
We can do that as a community on these decisions.
So to be an anarchist, then, do you have to be inherently optimistic about human, like, decisions?
I don't think you have to be optimistic about decisions, but I do believe...
Or, like, their behaviors?
I do believe most anarchists have the core foundation that people are inherently good. Like, we don't believe that people are self-interested. We believe that we're community interested. We don't have the whole Ayn Rand aspect of it. That's
we're social animals.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So
you can look at like tribes, that don't have prisons, and see there's ways that they enforce laws, if you want to say it that way, without actually punishing or harming anybody.
Yes.
Because people want to belong. Mm-hmm. So you were saying like shame is really harmful. It is really harmful, but it's harmful when we use it in the sense of like making someone ashamed of their body or their sexual urges or their sexual identity. It's not necessarily harmful if we're using it to discourage people from harmful behavior. So look at rape culture, right? We have laws against sexual assault, but I wouldn't say that rape is happening on such a level because of our laws. I would say it's happening because of our culture, because we accept it.
See, and I would argue...
Because we don't shame it enough?
Well, we don't... Yeah, I mean, what do? We shame the victim.
Yeah.
We create a culture where it's...
We have a culture of silence with it.
Culture of silence. Yeah. And in a way, we actually encourage... I would say we encourage assault on people. Mm-hmm. By, we don't punish, that is one side of it, but it's really more about, there is no shame in it. We don't teach people, like it's also teaching people. It's not just shame, but it's how you raise, like if you raise people with the idea that you're a group and the group collective is what's important. We don't do that. And right? We don't raise boys to not hurt women, right? We raise women to be afraid of men, and we raise women to think if something happens to them, it's their fault. And we raise men to think the same thing. Mm-hmm. So it's, I think culture is much more powerful than laws, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And I would argue, like, when have you ever heard somebody say, oh, shucks, I really want to rape somebody, but I'm not because I might go to jail.
Right.
Like that. the prevalence of it already. It shows you that the law itself doesn't stop the behavior.
Yeah, and the law, even with a strong law against something, proving things is so difficult. So there's a lot. It's not really, and then there's no reform. Like, so okay, you send someone to jail, then what? It's not changing anything, as we see.
Yeah.
And then if you apply it to things like drugs, you know, I mean, people do drugs for a lot of reasons. People sell drugs for a lot of reasons. They're not just bad people that we need to throw away.
Right.
So that's what I mean. There's just, you can change things so that the group welfare is important, and you raise people that way, and the culture supports that without needing any kind of violent retribution for breaking that.
As a society, we like to tout like little isms all the time, you know, like 2 wrongs don't make a right, right? Well, if you actually believe that and you take that to its actual conclusion, if you believe jails are wrong, then putting somebody in jail for doing something wrong isn't going to make it right. It doesn't fix the problem.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, well, I've read a lot about other cultures that do not have jails. Like, and I always forget what country it is, but there's a country that basically they're closing jails.
Yes.
They're like in a European
There's a couple actually.
nation. Yeah, that basically like they try to rehabilitate people, and they're not just like locking them up and throwing away the key, and then people aren't like returning.
Right.
Like they're not coming back because you're not just putting them into a position where they get out of jail, they have nothing.
So jails are actually an American invention as we know them today, prisons are. I don't know if either one of you are very familiar with the origins of prisons, but they started out with the Puritans. And that to me...
Fucking Puritans.
Yeah, exactly. Fucking Puritans, right?
Just going crazy with the F-bombs today.
But,
I don't know what it is.
But anything that's pretty much started by the Puritans, I'm going to instantly side with, that's probably wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm going to side with wrong until proven otherwise, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, they started prisons so you would have a solitude space to repent to God with.
Yeah.
You know, and...
What?
Yeah.
There were buildings that didn't have a roof that they would put people in isolation, solitary confinement basically, so they could pray to God, so they could repent for the sin that they had just committed.
Oh my
That's
God,
the
my
origins
mind
of
is,
prisons
like,
in the
blown
United
right now.
States. And when you really look at how prisons are set up, it's not very much different at this point. That's basically what we're doing. We're throwing people away and just saying, sit here until, as a society, we say, come out.
Yeah.
We're not doing anything to help the individual.
No.
We're not addressing the problems that got the individual
And
there.
even if we do,
Or
even
why
if
they
someone
make those choices.
Right. Even if someone goes to prison, gets their GED, gets educated, whatever, learns some skills, they get out, no one's going to hire them.
No.
They're going to have this stigma attached to them forever. It's not like they get out of jail and we're like, you served a sentence. You're good. Like, your slate's wiped clean. Welcome back to society. Good luck to you.
And their voting rights are taken away. It's another way of controlling them.
It is just exactly what it is.
Exactly.
I still cannot believe that voting rights are so conditional in this country.
It's insane.
Considering we all grew up being like, no taxation without representation, right? That's like the thing that we learned was the basis of our country. My mind was blown. I was talking to someone, a coworker, a while back who's from England, but he's been living here for like 25 years now or something. He's married and has grown kids now, and he always jokes, he's like, don't even get me started on your history, because he's like, I'm from England, I work here, I live here, I pay taxes here, and I can't vote. He's like, pretty sure you guys started a war about that. And I had no idea until he said that.
There's some pretty viable arguments that would state that if we maintained under European rule, we would actually have a better society now than we do.
I believe it.
There were a bunch of really funny
I
memes
totally
going
believe
around
it.
recently about Queen Elizabeth being like, okay, America, like, we've given you your time. It's time to, like, come back.
Yeah.
Like, clearly you
Come
can't
back to
manage
mama.
yourself.
Yeah.
I did see the funny one where she said if Donald Trump becomes president, she'll take back the country.
Yeah.
I still don't like her. But that's funny.
She might be better than Trump.
You know, and to bring it back a little more serious.
Although they just had Brexit, so I don't know if they're doing much better than us at this
Touche.
point.
But like when you're talking about jails, like I also like to talk about like police in the same manner. People like to say that police are here to protect us and to stop crime, but the police don't stop crime. That's
No.
not the job of the police. The job of the police is to they come in reactionary, right? And I think that's probably some of the problem with why we have so much violence, because they want to have their job be to stop crime, but that's not actually what they're supposed to do, right? So the idea of that police are here to actually help protect us is completely false from the get-go. They
Wait,
were
so
never
they're-
designed to protect us. They shouldn't be here to protect us because all they do is make things fucking worse on every single turn.
You mean they don't protect and serve us?
No, they definitely do not.
What?
But it says so right on their
So, I mean,
card.
It does.
Because so like when you're
Wow.
when you're dealing with the state, like right there, that is the aspect of the state that most people deal with on a continual basis. From the get go, the dealing with the state is from a flawed standpoint. So we deal with the state from the police perspective, and how the entire cycle dealing with that, going through the judicial system, going through the jail system, and coming back into society, is all just fucked up. And we can name every single aspect of it, but until that's abolished from the get go, from the police side of it, it's never going to get better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, where is my like anarchist starter guide? Like, is there like a
David
welcome
Graeber's.
You,
You might be
A
an
welcome
anarchist.
kit.
What is
kit?
it?
There's
You
like
get your
a
little patch,
Right.
your spelling
No.
patch.
Here's like your
If you
little
want-
like introductory reading.
No, honestly, David Graeber's. You
An
might be an
anarchist guide
anarchist,
to jail.
or are you an anarchist? The
Yeah, Answer My
Answer
Surprise.
Surprise You. That's what it is.
It's a great starter pack. It's a couple paragraphs long, but if you really want to know, AK Press has a phenomenal 2-volume series called The Anarchist FAQ, and it goes into depth about simple questions like who picks up the trash, right? Like it
Yeah.
literally answers things like that, and it just talks about how people organize and how they get together. So I highly recommend it. If all my books weren't in storage, I would pull them out and show them to you. But
It's like this thick.
they're I mean
jeez.
they're like encyclopedias, but because they try to answer in-depth, mundane, like bullshit questions, right?
That's fascinating.
But I feel like that stuff is all gonna like come up.
It does.
I mean, I'm someone where I really need to like think something all the way through before I can like get into it.
yeah,
And I feel like I would have a ton of those questions.
but it's the same thing. Like so, like look at how this VegFest was organized, right? You can take that and expand it out to the entire community. Well, was there trash that was picked up? Well, yeah, it was. People organized themselves and they decided who did that. Whereas they're kind of policing on rules. Yeah, there was. They decided how they were going to do that, how they were going to approach people. Like it was like a very microscopic look at it, but you can see how just the basic of organizing groups of people, all that's really what it is. It's just organizing people, and you just expand that out.
Yeah.
Is it perfect? No, I'm not going to tell you it's perfect.
Right. Well, of course not. I don't know. I feel like the more I've learned recently, the less I'm convinced that like people are good.
That is kind of a
And I
key starting
struggle
point.
with that.
But I totally.
I don't think police
it's
and
societal.
jail works either, but I don't
I really think it's culture and society, and I think that once we break that,
Mhm.
that inside people are inherently good.
Yes, I do
maybe
believe
I'm
that.
an optimist.
Once people have
Yeah.
all the pressures and taken off of them that society puts on them, not just pressures, but everything that is put on somebody that forces decisions to be made, right? Like everything that makes somebody make the decision of, let's say robbing a store or everything that put them to that point. Once that's removed because of society, then yes, I think we're all equal on equal footing.
Yeah, well, I do agree. Nichole and I talk all the time about how unnatural the way we're living is and how it just brings out like the worst in people. I mean, the fact that I commute an hour every day, 2 hours every day to go to a corporate job that I fucking hate, to sit at a desk where
To earn my
some
food.
person who like has this made up title gets to like control my life for 9 hours every day. Like that is ridiculous.
So right
like
now
that people live that way, and no wonder they're self-medicating with alcohol and drugs and
Oh, yeah.
TV and social media, and why they're like so they step all over each other just to get a fucking office at their job. Like, what is that? Like, we take each other down just to like get a room with a door.
See, and these are the pressures that I'm talking about that society puts on you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's why you just basically came out as an anti-capitalist. Right? So you're like right there.
Yeah, you just need to.
Pretty much.
I'll get you that encyclopedia for Christmas.
Okay. My birthday's coming up.
Well, I already have your birthday present.
Oh, okay.
Well, thank you for going down that anarchist little road trip.
Yes,
with
That
me.
was fun.
I sincerely... Oh, sorry.
I will just say, I know, just to bring it all back together, when I was at an anarchist conference, it was very intersectional, and everyone ate vegan, even though no one was vegan there. Or not not
You
everyone.
weren't vegan there?
No, not everyone was vegan. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
I wasn't vegan there, but I ate.
no.
Podcast
So like,
exclusive.
just because there was a handful of vegans, everybody ate vegan,
Yeah.
just to make it easy.
It's like you always
And-
say, the lowest common denominator.
Yeah.
Like that's what you.
Yeah.
It's
You
about
take
making
care
those
of everybody.
concessions and,
Yeah.
And-
just realizing,
Yeah.
And I was talking with a friend who was arrested at RNC, and they got jailed, and there was maybe like 12 vegans in that whole group of hundreds of people, and everyone was requesting vegan food in the jail because, number one, it's fun to piss off the jail,
Yeah.
but two, it's solidarity because
Yeah.
they
Yes.
care. And I think that, I mean, that's something that's important too.
Yeah. Absolutely. And yeah, again, I just think we need to, as vegans, we need to focus on building community and not the individual, you know, not like what we get out of it necessarily, but connecting with each other.
Yeah.
And I think that'll help the movement a lot.
And I think it reminded me, like, the first time we talked and, like, we expressed that I have no desire to force people to be vegan. I can't remember which one of you were kind of shocked by that.
That was me.
Yeah.
Callie, for people who don't know. Since you can't see me pointing. Yeah, I was shocked, and I actually think about that a lot. You know, especially
She
in
does,
terms
yeah, we
of
talk about
like
it.
anarchy and like where that line is.
It's not my place to force other people to do things.
It's my place to educate and let them know why.
Right.
But can you imagine? So picture like you grew up in a society where people just didn't eat animals. Would you like go eat animals?
No.
Most likely, you know what I mean? Even if there was no laws or like no one was forcing you not to.
But
you
we're not
just wouldn't be
starting
like-
from a clean slate.
Well, we're not, but I mean, we're not
So-
starting from a clean slate with anything. That's
which
like
is
saying-
why I'm confused.
Well,
Kind of the main point.
And that's why I always say we need to tear it down.
Yeah, no,
Well,
that's what
I
was
say
saying.
that
It's a
all the
clean-
time.
it's a cleaner slate. We tear down and rebuild.
Yeah, you should see our like our text messages where like, but like one of us will have a bad day. It's like burn this shit to the ground.
And then I'm like, just kidding, NSA.
so that's one of the things I wish we could have shown you here was the actual NSA building where they collect your phones. It's just actually a little bit down the street. It's really fucking like just
Disturbing?
Yeah,
It is
I don't want to say
disturbing.
scary because it's not really scary, but is just like that pure dystopian, like amazing, massive structure that has no windows, and you realize like that's actually it. Like we
Yeah.
joke about it all the time, like just kidding and saying, you're like, no, this is real. This is actually it. It's right fucking here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when I saw that Edward Snowden documentary a couple years ago, oh my God, it changed so much for me because I knew that like texts and calls and stuff that they were tracking those things, but like to see the level of like what was going on, and I'm sure that's like the tiniest tip of the iceberg. It's like, holy shit.
Well, I just want to let you all know that I have sincerely enjoyed having you here.
Yeah.
I feel like I've made new friends, like actual friends, not
Yes.
just like online friends. So and I hope you feel the same way. If not, you can tell me offline, and then I'll cry. But that's okay.
No, we had literally the best time in Salt Lake. It's going to
Yeah.
be really hard to
I-
leave.
Like legitimately, I'm trying to figure out when I can come back.
Yeah.
I want to see
literally
the
anytime.
Christmas lights.
Seriously,
Yeah.
the Christmas lights are.
I know.
I was
you
going to say
talked them up.
amazing, but they're more. They're like amaze balls. Like they're just.
Amaze balls.
Yeah, they're amaze balls.
With a Z?
Well, of course.
Okay.
Yeah. Jeez.
Who's balls and maze balls with an O?
No, we've
Idiot.
had a really good time. And to your credit, I think we've talked about like how you guys are just so welcoming and inclusive. And if someone just had your pedigree, they would think, oh, what two intimidating people, right? But you're not at all. And I think you guys are both great examples. That's why we talk about you all the time, because you're both great examples of how you can live this very alternative lifestyle or have very alternative views, but still not be a dick. Like still be very welcoming and warm to people who aren't like you.
Yeah.
You
I'm
know?
so glad I have you convinced.
I'm not saying you're not a dick. Just kidding.
You've only
Because I am pulling
a couple days.
way over you.
But no, like you're really sweet. Like if we have questions, I could see other people being like, "Ugh, what a bunch of normies." You know, what is this?
Like
But
literally
you're
people have
just so
said that.
kind. You always just really sincerely answer our questions, and you never treat us like
Yeah.
we're these, you know, corporate sellouts or anything. It just,
Because I'm a corporate sellout.
well, I think that helps too. You guys do live in the real world.
Yeah.
But even that, the fact that you can navigate this world, just like we do as vegans, we all do as vegans. I think that that's what a lot of people are missing. Is like, you could use that to feel superior, but you use it instead to connect. And I think that's what we all need to do.
But don't confuse it. I am superior.
We'll never forget.
You are a white cis male.
Yeah,
It's so true.
So it's me. I
mean,
I can't
clearly
deny
You
it.
don't, have to,
Clearly.
you don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
But thank you all so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for hosting us.
Yes.
And thanks for doing this episode with us.
Yay.
Of course.
Yeah.
Perfect. Should we wrap it there?
Yeah.
Yes.
What do we
We did
normally
it.
say at the end of our show?
Oh yeah, totally forgot about that. We end every episode saying "fuck, shit, damn." Would y'all mind saying it for us this week?
Absolutely. Do we have to time it? We're gonna fuck
Should
this
should we skip do every word?
up. Sure.
Okay. Fuck,
Shit.
damn,
Can you now do it every letter?
F.
No. Not doing that.
Callie's not playing.
This week you heard
Breathe by Cillo.
Right Now you're listening to
Blinding Jakwob. If you like the show at all, which if you got this far into it, I'm going to assume you did, because why would you listen this far if you didn't like it? But if you like the show at all, please go rate and review the show on iTunes or whatever podcast aggregate you're using. It'll help our search engine optimization, which means that it's easier for people to find the show. And we get more listens, and it doesn't cost you anything. And it's super simple to do. And you can write whatever you want. You can troll us in your review as long as you give us good stars. That's all that really matters.
We got a troll this week.
We did. So please go rate and review the show. If you've already done that, my hat's off to you. You're an amazing person. Now go bug a friend to listen.
And bug them to bug someone. And if everyone bugs their friend to bug another friend, the whole world will be vegan.
That's all we need.
Isn't that how it works?
Yeah, and then we'll work on anarchists as well.
Or no, we're talking about the podcast. Yeah, never mind. Push it down.
You want to do social media?
No.
Okay.
Follow us on social media. I don't know what I'm doing.
That sounds good to me. Fuck shit damn.
Which Side Podcast is hosted and produced by Jordan Halliday and Jeremy Parkin of the Which Side Media Collective, with web design by Jordan Halliday and sound design by Jeremy Parkin. Booking by Mari Halliday. Theme music by Commandantes. Go to whichsidecollective.org to check out the other shows in the collective. As always, fuck shit damn.